Welcome back to Media Week. Thanks for joining us. Let's go straight to it and get a check on the media sector's performance on the share market this week. And for that, we're joined by Evan Lucas from IG. Evan, good afternoon to you. We were just hearing from APN News and Media CEO. What did you make of the results? And more importantly, how did the share price react through the remainder of the week?
Yeah, hi Nadine, hi James. It was an interesting result. It did show that obviously revenue was down ever so slightly, down around about 3% from last year to $410 million. And it was a really sort of mixed, interesting result because if you do look at on the earnings line, you break it down into their four areas, being publishing, broadcasting and outdoor digital. They all were slightly different. So publishing continues to be a bit of a drag, down 7.1%, but broadcasting was better. They did actually see outdoor down, but their digital online. Interesting was that expenses were also slightly higher, despite obviously the Australian radio network doing very well with the move over of Kyle and Jackie O. That was done very nicely, but the cost that's come with that maybe have offset some of it. All in all, it was an interesting result, and they still talk about the fact that advertising is short, it's volatile, and at the second half of this year already they've seen that continuing. So maybe the results will continue to be a little bit fluctuating as we sit towards the back end of the year.
Share price doing quite well, though. Let's get a preview of Seven West. I guess when it comes to Seven West, it's all about market share.
It is indeed. And again, probably looking at the numbers that you probably want to see when we do get the results out, underlying net profit around about $229.8 million, and that is a good improvement on last year. Sales at around about 1.85, but as you alluded to, Nadine, it is all about that TV arm. Publishing still remains weak. They did forecast halfway through this year that they expected sort of low, mid-digit growth in advertisement in TV, but probably low growth in publishing. All in all, that ends up being net a sort of mid-digit in terms of growth, but they are quite well leveraged to that upside. Seven is still doing very nicely and probably offsetting any issues in print. So Seven will be the one to watch next week. We then probably will look to Nine the week after that and see how the free-to-air TV vision is going.
All right, Evan Lucas, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Evan Lucas from IG in Melbourne. Quick one to my guest host today, James Manning, editor and publisher of Mediaweek. What will you be looking for in that Seven West result?
Yeah, well, Evan's right. It's all about the TV, I guess. But I like looking at their magazine stuff too. They're a big player in the main categories there, and what they're going to say about their emerging technologies. Especially, I'm a big fan of what I've seen so far of HBB TV. Seven have really been pushing that hard, so I think they've got a few initiatives about to roll out, and we might start to hear about them.
Okay, good one. The theme of this week's Future Forum, held in Sydney, was Get Closer. So get closer to understanding your audiences, agencies and advertisers. And James was there and spoke with Peter Miller. He's MD of AdStream. And James began by asking, are publishers being realistic when they hope to be better supported by advertisers?
Peter, you're hosting a panel today on newspapers and advertising. You still work in the space. You've worked for News, you've worked for Fairfax, selling ads. Are publishers dreaming? You hear them talking a lot about getting better support from agencies. Are they being undersold by media buyers?
I think it's fair to say that they've got to do a better job of getting in the face of media buyers, but also I think creative agencies. If you don't have a big idea for newspapers that can travel across all the other media options, either owned or not owned by the newspaper guys, then you're just talking about X's in someone else's boxes. So I think they've got a hard job, but I think it's doable. I don't think any of them were too optimistic. I mean, Howcroft, of course, got a very optimistic spin out of them, and that was his job probably. But I reckon you can sell double-page spreads in the Daily Telegraph and the Herald like nobody's business. I'm not sure the job's being done, and that's no insult to guys that I have worked with in the past.
Yeah, I mean, they still look very impressive, don't they? And they're really hard to ignore. But you get the feeling they need to do a bit more work in display for digital too, like large format ads that really hit you when you're reading a tablet.
Yes, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, particularly on smart devices. I'm not sure that the tolerance, I mean, the jury's out. I'm not sure that there's a great tolerance amongst consumers for things like big drop-downs and page takeovers, and yet it's hard to be creative on a tile and a banner. And so I think that's where I think the big luxurious newspapers, if I'm in the market for a new Audi in a couple of years, someone's going to sneak up on me with a big ad for a Jag. But if I'm not looking, to Julian's point about passive and active readership, if I'm not looking, I'm not going to find that ad online or on a web, on an app, but it's not going to miss me in the paper. So I think there's a great job to be done, and I'm interviewing a creative guy and a media guy, and I'm going to try and, not get them brawling, but certainly getting them expressing strong opinions on, what newspapers need to be doing more of.
I wonder if there's a disconnect within agencies too. We get a lot of the agency CEOs on our show on the business channel, and they talk about, look, I think newspapers doing a good job. They do have a place to play, but you get down maybe the lower levels, the people actually, putting the crosses in the boxes don't have that same sort of love for and realise the strength of the sector.
Well, I honestly feel that if that's the case, then two things aren't happening. News media and newspaper publishers aren't being successful at making them more aware of the power of that medium. It's the job of those, junior people to know what's going on. Where are they going to get that information? From newspaper publishers. So I'd hold them responsible, and I think if there's an imbalance and if there's too many values in forming media planning by those junior people who aren't personally engaged in newspapers, then I think there's a gross failure to train them.
Coming up on Media Week, we'll take a look at the weekly ratings and get the latest on the red-hot Devil's Playground series. We're back in a moment. Hi there, welcome back to the program. This is Media Week. Well, let's take a look at the ratings for week 25, free to air. And James, number 1 and 2 position, it really does dominate when it's on, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, it's wonderful. You get one of these big franchises up and you can run it 4 or 5 nights a week. It just keeps drawing the audience in. Block doing very well. Launching in New Zealand. New Zealand do their own version of the Block, kicks off this week. So it's a format's working everywhere. Well,
and 9 and 7 News Sunday, obviously on the list.
Yeah.
Also, X Factor results still there.
Yeah, and Anzac Girls are doing very well too. ABC doesn't often get a show up in the top 10, so it's good to see an Aussie drama doing it.
Yeah, good. When we look at subscription TV ratings, again, it's always sports dominating, isn't it?
Like Cup number 1 there. Interesting, they had to share that with free-to-air TV, so it's a good result for subscription. Got a big audience on 10 as well.